going on, everybody? While you're perusing your record selections, we're going to invite a few people up here that have worked in the store and worked in the Richmond music scene for years to tell you a little bit more about Plan 9 and the Richmond music scene over the years in honor of Plan 9's 33rd and 3rd anniversary and WRIR's Fund Drive, which started yesterday, so make sure you make your donation. That was Bill that you were just listening to up here. He does a show on WRIR called Global A Go-Go, so thanks to him, that sounded awesome. And I am with Secretly Y'all. This is Kathleen. We run a storytelling event in town called Secretly Y'all. And I want to thank her for helping organize this, and Mike Rutz and Lindsay Spurrier. They're awesome. So without further ado, we're going to invite the owner of Plan 9 up here, Jim Bland. And his story is entitled Plan 9 20th Anniversary. Got a couple seats up here.
Yep. Thank you. Thanks for coming too for this. I was looking through a lot of our flyers and memorabilia when we were putting together our 33 and a 3rd anniversary here that just is just actually at the tail end of right now. And so I came across a lot of this stuff in the 20th anniversary when I understood this was happening. Made me think back to that time as well. And we were a much bigger operation at the time. We had 5 stores in Virginia at that time. And so we put together this big event for our 20th anniversary. So we had music all through the week. We had it at all of our stores actually all through that week. And then on Sunday we opened it up to the back. We set up a big stage in the back. We had beer, food, and we had a cross-section of bands in Richmond that were just amazing, I think. All the local bands, and of course a lot of the local bands who were nationally known. So through that week we had local guys from bluegrass, country, folk, rock, punk, you name it. We had all kinds of people playing that day through that week. We had, just to name some of the bands that played through the week, Lamb of God played during the week in the store. We had and then Paige Wilson, Burnt Taters, a lot of all the local bands that were on the label that I had at the time. And on Sunday we had Denali, we had David Lowery from Cracker, we had Sparkle Horse. So it was just a great day, and it was a great day for us, and we were celebrating. But to me, it was all about all that the bands, the camaraderie there, and how much talent we had here in Richmond. And I think it still is here today. So I know there's been some talk about the ebb and flow of the music scene here, but I think we've always had a pretty strong music scene here, and we're thankful to be a part of that. Thank you.
All right, next up we have Bruce Olson. Bruce started playing music in Richmond in 1963. He played drums in a regional band called Joker's Wild. After a short stint in LA, he moved back to Richmond, where he helped open a venue called the Flood Wall, if you recall. Flood Zone, sorry, Flood Zone. My bad. After selling the Flood Zone, he started Montrose Studios in 1992, where he's recorded numerous acts and artists, and where his son Adrian is helping him these days. And his story is entitled Joker's Wild. Bruce.
Okay, I've never really done this before. But I'm no stranger to making a fool out of myself, so. Well, I was playing a band called the Joker's Wild, and it was John Richardson. I don't know if anybody's even old enough to remember any of this stuff, but it was back in about '65, I think. And we used to open up for all the soul acts that came in town. And played at the Arena and Tantilla and all these places, and Tilly's and the Wigwam. Yeah, there's an old one there. And so, anyway, John got us the gig opening up for Sam and Dave in Fredericksburg. So we go up to Fredericksburg, and it's in this big airplane hangar, and they've got this big door that opens, but that was closed, and everybody came in through this one little door. And gosh, there must have been 700 or 800 people in there, packed. And so we play, and we're playing, we get finished, and the band was Buzz Monsinger, Howard Awad, Herbie Atkinson, Bernard Smith, and myself. And so we play, and we get off the stage and stop and go backstage, and there's Sam passed out in the floor. He can't move, drunk. He can't even. He's just like totally incapacitated. So John says, "Okay, well, what are we going to do?" So John says, "I got an idea." So he goes on stage to introduce the band, and he goes, "Ladies and gentlemen, Dave." And somebody starts shooting in the place. Boom! Gunfire's going off. Everybody panics. And I'm kind of backstage. I kind of jump behind the drums, and everybody just freaks out. The whole crowd panics, and are crushing through the door, trying to get all through this one little door that's attached to this big other door. And some people are coming out, and then all of a sudden you see this big door, the big one, go woof, and just fall down. And he must have fallen on 20, 30 people. And then I look up, and I see John Richardson running as fast as he can to his car with money flying out of his pockets like a cartoon character. And he gets to his car and wheels it and takes off. And that was a not regular night back in the 60s. That's about it, I guess.
Our next storyteller is Lainey Sullivan. Lainey has lived in Richmond since 2003. She plays harmonium and sings for the world fusion band Lobo Marino. She and her partner Jameson are in the process of building an urban agriculture collective in Southside, and her story is entitled How Richmond Made Me a Musician.
Hey, thanks, Colin. So, I'm a musician, professional musician now. I guess it's all I do. I just travel around and play music with Lobo Marino. But never thought that was going to be my profession when I was growing up. It just didn't seem like an option. I thought I was going to be a professor or an anthropologist or work for some kind of NGO. But I came to Richmond, and it all started when I stole my friend's, he wasn't my friend at the time, I stole underwear and I was walking down Hanover Street, and I found this pair of boxers that had Andy Warhol print on them, and I thought that my boyfriend at the time, who lived in California, would really like them. And so I took them, and I wrote a note to the nearest house. I said, I think I might have taken your underwear. If you want them back, here's my number, but I think my boyfriend would really like them, so can I keep them? I left the note at this house, and I think I'd sent the underwear off to California. But a couple weeks later, I ended up going to that house, and it was where people were cooking food for Food Not Bombs at that time. And I was one of the volunteers making vegetarian meals for homeless folk in Monroe Park. And I met Allison Self there. We were cooking potatoes in the kitchen, and we started singing and harmonizing with each other. And we were like, let's play some music. And we found our friend Nathiel, who plays the upright bass, she was playing for the High Street Lowlives at that time. And we started a old-timey, all-female folk trio with Carter family-inspired songs that we would play. And that was a really amazing experience. I had found an accordion in my grandma's house, and I didn't know how to play the accordion. And I was living in an apartment on Grove Street with 5 other ladies, and so I needed to teach myself, but I didn't want to bother them. So I walked around Hollywood Cemetery, and I would learn how to move the accordion with the pace of my steps as I was walking. And I thought that the dead people wouldn't mind listening to me practice the accordion. And I play harmonium, which is kind of like the same thing. I got the pumping down. But Arise Sweet Donkey, that old all-girl folk trio, our first gig was in front of 200 people at Gallery 5 for an All the Saints Theater Company's spaghetti dinner. And it was crazy, and I was so scared. I was so scared. I'd never done anything like that before. And you know, when it's kind of like right now, when your heart's beating so hard and you can barely catch your breath, and you're like, I'm supposed to sing right now? And I just closed my eyes and focused on what I was doing and made it through it. And I think the most important part of my experience was that no matter where I was in my process of learning how to play music, the community in Richmond was so supportive, and people were all about it. They were just so, it's the collaborative spirit of the scene here, and how wonderful everybody is. It always held me up and encouraged me to keep going. And later on, I met the love of my life in Richmond, and he, of course, was in a bunch of bands, and we went off to South America together, and we wrote an album together, and we became Lobo Marino, which is my band now. But you know, I was fortunate to meet another. He was like a real musician that had been playing in bands since he was like 12. You know, like punk bands and stuff. So that was awesome. And our first show we played at the New Bogarts, which was on Carey Street after they moved from Lombardy. And it was kind of a weird place for us to play. I think it was my first time going there since it had moved. And a magical thing happened, because in the middle of our set, it got completely quiet. And everybody was full of people. A lot of them were our friends, but everyone's listening. And I went to get a drink at the end of the night, and I go to the bartender, and she's like, I've never been here when it's been silent for the music before. So I felt like we had some kind of magic, and that we had to keep going. And so we did. And the last really powerful experience that we've had in Richmond that I want to share is we recorded our third album at Gallery 5, and we recorded it upstairs, and it was live, and we invited a bunch of our friends to come and sing on the album. So it was like a incorporative live album with people singing parts. And there was this moment where everything came together and everybody was singing together. And in this album of our band, I had become the lead singer. I was usually just singing harmony. The whole time I was singing, I was always singing harmony. It was really easy for me to do. But I'd never been the lead singer. And I was sitting there, I had just transitioned from the accordion to the harmonium, and I was sitting with my harmonium singing, and I realized that I had found this deep voice within myself that was mature and fully developed, and I never knew I had it, and I don't think I ever would have found it if it weren't for the community here that helped me along the way, and I'm so grateful. And that's the great thing about Richmond, is that, you know, it's such a empowering, is that a word? Empowering community, and I'm really grateful for it. So, and I'm grateful for Secretly Y'all. I'm grateful for WRIR and all the things that they do to uphold the community. And yeah, that's my story.
All you dudes out there holding on to your boxer shorts around Lady. Don't let her sweet story fool you. We're gonna get a WRIR DJ up here. Bill Lupoletti. He was just up here spinning. Bill Lupoletti is WRIR's World Music Director, and he hosts Global A Go Go on Wednesdays from 3 to 5 p.m. He has volunteered at the station since 2004 under many responsibilities, and his story is entitled Plan 9 Records, Richmond's Welcome Wagon. While he's telling, go ahead and go donate.
Yes, please do that, absolutely. I think Lainey is probably too modest to have pointed out that her band is going to be performing on WRIR on Tuesday. So if you want to hear the... Exactly, yeah. So this coming Tuesday between 3 and 5 p.m. on WRIR 97.3 FM on the program Why Dear Folk. And it's our fund drive, and they're giving away a special event. We're going to have a raffle for everyone that donates during the show, and the winner is going to win a house concert by Lobo Marino. So that was a very generous donation, thank you. Plan 9 opened in 1981, and I moved to Richmond in 1981 from, well, I grew up in New York, I went to college in Philadelphia. And when we planned this event, the radio station did, I said I would really like to DJ here. I did not say I wanted to tell a story, but I'm going to do that too. But I said I wanted to DJ because there was something that I wanted to, some music that I wanted to play, and all those records that I was playing earlier today, those are all records that I bought at Plan 9 in the first 3 years that they were in business. So I just went through my collection, found that stuff, and put together a set of that. And I think probably Jim Bland and I are the only two people that knew all of those records. Because he's the person that turned me on to most of the music that I played there. Including that very first one, which is this record. This is the very first record that I ever bought at Plan 9. So when I moved to Richmond, I didn't know anybody in the whole city. I moved here because I took a job when I got out of college, and you know, it was 1981, and the unemployment rate was like 15% or something. So getting a job was pretty awesome. So you couldn't really be all that picky. But Richmond I didn't know anything about, and I came down here, I think it was Memorial Day weekend, and it was like 95 degrees. And I rented the first apartment that I could find that had central air conditioning. And that's how I came to live on the south side. And it was very hard to figure out what was going on in Richmond at that time. I thought I had this job, I was going to be here for 2 years. It was the kind of job where you did it for 2 years and they expected you to go to graduate school or something like that. And I thought, I'm not going to make it 2 years in this place, it's too boring. This is crazy. And I just couldn't figure out what was going on. And I fancied myself kind of hip. You know, I was into this kind of music like Laurie Anderson, and you know, I promoted concerts when I was in college with like Ornette Coleman and the Art Ensemble of Chicago and Philip Glass and stuff like that. It wasn't anything like that was going to be happening in Richmond, right? And then I found this record store. It was right down the street from here in its original location, which, correct me if I'm wrong about this, is where the Nile restaurant is now? Yeah, the Portrait House and the Nile restaurant is. That was the original Plan 9 location. It was completely unrenovated at the time. There was a little front room. It was too small to really even have record racks in it. There was a pinball machine in there, or 1 or 2 pinball machines. And, once you got to be in the know at Plan 9, you would get invited to see the movies. That was like a big deal, to see Petey's Mexican wrestling movies and whatever else he screened in there. But at the beginning, I was just so thrilled that there was a place that it was kind of a lot like the way it is now. There was a lot of used material. It turned out, I later found out that it was mostly the folks who started the store, they just like took all the records they owned, put price tags on them, and that was the original inventory of the store when they got started. They started making some money, and then they could buy new material, and you would start seeing these records that I thought, wow, I was getting the Village Voice, you know, mailed to me so that I could keep up with what was hip in like downtown New York. And I read about Laurie Anderson. I walked in the store the first time, and they had this record. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow, this is totally like blowing me away. And it turned out that you had to go to Plan 9 to find out what was going on. That was the place. That's where all the flyers were for the shows. That's where you would meet people who were doing things like, I met the folks that started Richmond Artist Workshop, which was down in Shockoe Bottom, and they were bringing odd, you know, weird kind of music like the stuff that I was into. They were bringing these people to town. I just didn't know about it yet. And then, you know, because I met the people at Richmond Artists Workshop, I'd heard from them about this project that people were trying to start, which was a radio station on cable TV. Anybody hear about this? Anybody know about this out there? It was called Channel 36 Color Radio. It started in 1982 or 3 when Richmond had just got wired for cable TV. There were 36 channels on the original cable system, and there wasn't 36 channels of programming to be had. You know, MTV had just started. I guess there was like CNN, and then there was nothing. There was like text messages running across the screen. And then they had like radio stations, commercial radio stations as the sound. And a group of people, I was not one of the people who had the idea, but a group of people had this idea and called up someone they knew who worked for the cable company and said, hey, why don't you let us just create music for the cable system and you can just put it on one of the channels. And it's hard to imagine that today. You know, you'd probably have to go through some legal department and, you know, Rapid City, South Dakota or something. But the person that they knew is actually named Matt Zoller. He's WRIR's underwriting director right now. And he was the guy who was the contact, and he was the guy who gave them the green light to do it. And so they started this radio station, and I got involved in it very quickly. It was on Channel 36, the very last channel of the cable system, but just the audio only. And the video was the color test pattern. You know, it said like cyan, magenta, green, and that was, you had to watch that in order to listen to us. It was awesome. It was the best. And we had a great slogan. We called it Better Radio Through Television. And that's how I found out about color radio. I got involved with that. And the first big color radio party, and I'll just wrap up with this. The first big color radio party that they ever had, the guys who started lived on Hanover Avenue, so I've got Hanover in here twice on this in these stories. And I met this woman who had just moved back to Richmond from college. She had just gotten back from Africa, and she was just starting to volunteer at Color Radio, just like me. And she was a huge fan of Laurie Anderson, and so like I actually had the right thing to say to her, and we're married now. So there you go, all because of Plan 9.
All right, we're gonna get some Plan 9 employees up here. Just worked here for a couple years. Bob or Rob, who wants to go? You wanna go next? Okay. Rob Sheely. He's worked here since October of '99, so a mere 15 years. He's the art director, graphic designer, assistant manager, kind of jack of all trades here. And he's also helping produce Horsehead's new album, Casual Dracula. That will come out Friday the 8th. They're going to be playing at Browns Island for First Fridays. So his story is entitled Joan Jett at the Boulders.
I was going to tell a story about how some chick stole my Andy Warhol boxers, but that's obviously been done already. So I'm not a Richmond native. I don't say y'all, but I do say yuns because I'm from Pennsylvania. So I moved here in fall of '94 to go to art school. So unfortunately, I missed all the wonderful flyer exhibition and stuff. I didn't see any of those shows, and I'm heartbroken. But so when we got to art school, we're all broke punks and sort of degenerates, and there was a place on Midlothian, similar to Innsbruck, called the Boulders. It was just a big office complex, and they had kind of a cutaway hillside that they had an outdoor stage, and they would have shows there. And I think it only lasted like a year or two. So the spring of '95, maybe summer of '95, they booked Joan Jett and the Blackhearts. And none of us had ever seen her before, and she still doesn't really tour that much, at least not close by. So a whole bunch of us piled into 2 or 3 cars and dressed in black, and we look like art school kids, and we don't look like what should show up at an office complex on the south side. And much like Innsbruck, it's sort of bring your own cooler, bring your own chair, bring your kids, and beach towels, and set up and enjoy the show, and people go for whatever it is. They are not ready for 15 dirtbags to show up and take it over. So we get there, and much like this, people have their chairs set up in front of the stage. and they're 4 or 5 feet back. All of us just show up and walk right to the front of the stage, just blocking their view with the way you go to a show. And so we see Joan peeling an apple and hanging out on the side of the stage, and we're extremely enamored by her. And she comes out with her band, and they are incredible, fantastic. We're going nuts. And there's a kid on the side of the stage with a cassette and a Sharpie throughout the entire time she's on stage, going like this. And she's 4 songs in, and the kid won't stop. And the band kind of notices her. Nobody bothers her. So they get to about the 5th or 6th song, and Joan takes her guitar off, and the guitar player starts this riff, and he starts playing "I Want to Be Your Dog" by the Stooges. So she takes the mic out of the mic stand, she puts it in her back pocket. She gets down on all 4s and crawls over to the kid and sings the song at him. And he's still waving the Sharpie and the cassette in front of her, and it is awesome. It doesn't faze her at all. And she puts the mic in her mouth and rolls around on stage, and the band's just not really sure what's going on. The kid still won't stop. And so the song ends, and she just rolls back over, and the kid goes like this, and she takes it and she signs his cassette right in the middle of the show, and then continues to entertain us. So I don't know how long the Boulders lasted after that. I know that was the only time we were there, and it was one of the early shows that I ever saw in Richmond, one of the most memorable ones. So thanks a lot.
Before our last story, Secretly All does a bi-monthly event, sometimes at Balaso. The next one's going to be at Ardent on May 11th with the theme Ancestors, so if you're intrigued by what we're doing here, then come out there, please. And our last storyteller is Bob Schick. He has only worked here for over 30 years, and over the years has played in numerous bands and was the lead singer of a band called On a Roll, and his story is called Forever.
Hey everybody, yeah, Forever just describes my status here, and it's neither good nor bad. It's mostly good, in fact. As far as in-store performances, I missed most of them because we had an office either down the street or a couple miles away. So I didn't see too many of the in-store performances, but one that was especially worth remembering to me was when the band called Gone, G-O-N-E, played in the store in 1986. There's a flyer up on the wall there for Black Flag and Gone at New Horizons in 1986, which is about the time that most people stopped caring about Black Flag at all, because they'd had like 3 too many lineup changes and they all seemed to hate each other. So Gone, which was Greg Ginn's instrumental 3-piece band, came and played a record store every day that they went on tour. And my friend Andy Jones, who was the buyer here at the time, who was very rarely impressed by anything, very rarely, and was into jazz almost exclusively, was here working that day and saw them play their instrumental 3-piece, you know, punk metal thing, whatever it was. And anyway, he just loved it. He thought it was the greatest thing he'd ever seen. I guess he thought it was jazzy in a way that appealed to him, and he was so pleased at their performance that he ended up letting each of the guys pick out a record, and he paid for it, and he just thought they were the greatest. And he played their record every day for a few weeks after that, and it was really neat. And I mention that because I miss him. I would have to say the most revelatory performance I've seen in Richmond, if we're going to talk about places like the Boulders and other places, I really think Burning Spear at New Horizons in 1985 was really, really revelatory to me. I mean, he was just so committed, and it was kind of like a prophet testifying, and it was really neat. And for somebody who didn't know very much about reggae music at the time, it was transformative, and I thought it was one of the coolest things I'd ever seen. So, Burning Spear, 84, pickup band, you know, a bunch of white guys from Long Island most likely, but he was just so on it, and he was so great, it was incredible, really neat. And then finally I will talk about an in-store that should have been an in-store that wasn't an in-store. there was some enlightened people at Sony Music at some point in the early 1990s who'd signed a band from Northern Virginia called Emmett Swimming. And Emmett Swimming's still going.